Welcome to Sit, Stay, Read, the podcast for every wag, whinny, and whisker. I'm Kathleen Donnelly, award-winning author and retired canine handler. Each week, I chat with novelists about the bond we share with our furry friends and how they inspire stories. Grab a coffee, get cozy with your favorite pet. It's time to sit, stay, read. Well, I am excited to welcome international best-selling author Louise Candlish to the show. Her latest release, A Neighbor's Guide to Murder, is a mix of humor, neighborhood gossip, scandal, and of course, murder. So Louise, welcome to the show.
Hi there, thank you for having me.
I was excited to have you on. This is such a fascinating book. And I think I found it fascinating because like 99% of it's written from Gwen's perspective. And it she's a really fascinating narrator. So I'd love to know more about how her character came about.
Oh my goodness. Well, for those who don't know, Gwen is 70 years old. And she's quite an acerbic sort of voice, I would say. But, she has a good heart and she enjoys living in the community of Columbia Mansions. But she came about because when I devised the book, the original idea was I wanted to explore the rental crisis because I'm known for my thrillers incorporating a property theme, often like Our House, for instance. But normally I'm writing from the point of view of homeowners. And as my own daughter reached her 20s, and the whole rental landscape started to come into view, and so I was inspired to write about renters in their 20s. Um, and young people, Gen Z basically. So I
Yeah.
assembled this cast of Gen Z characters, and we've got Pixie, who's this sort of free-spirited neighbor of Gwen's, who Gwen becomes very close friends with, which leads to trouble. There's
Yes.
also Gwen's own son, who has boomeranged back to her home without invitation, pretty much, following the breakup of his relationship. We've also got a media nepo baby, and we've got an
Yes.
influencer trad wife type who is Gwen's daughter. And so once I'd assembled all these characters and sort of, they've been living with him in my mind, I thought I actually don't want to tell this story through their voices. I don't really want a year of being in their heads because I think they're going to be quite
Yes.
irritating, all four of them.
Yes.
And so that's when I thought, well, who tells the story then? And what better to have someone who's a couple of generations away? She's seen it
Mhm.
all. She was around for, the first wave of feminism. She's had all kinds of life experiences, including, a very bitter divorce. And so
Yes.
that then I started to create Gwen in my mind. And the way I write is if it's a first person narrator, I like to just sort of plunge in and get their voice and then see if that voice works. And with Gwen, I felt like I'd written a couple of pages and I felt like, I was inhabiting her. I knew her so well. And I felt like her voice was sort of pitch perfect right from the start, which, is such a good sign because then you can just
Yeah.
carry on. You don't have to pause and fix the false notes. So yeah, that's where she came from. She came as a sort of foil to, a lens through which to see younger characters.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then she took on a life of her own.
She really did, because reading the book, I thought, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm having tea or coffee with her and eating some of the delicious food you had in the book and listening to her story. Like I could hear her, I could picture her, even though it was all in first person. And I thought that was amazing because that's
Oh,
not
thank
often.
you.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the reasons that it works is if, particularly with an older character, is that you can't be two-dimensional about it. I needed to really think through her whole history. So,
Yeah.
there's so much about Gwen that, she doesn't share. But I, as the creator of her, know all about it. And I think that you can get a sense of that with good characters on the page, that the author knows them inside out. I know, where she grew up. I know where she went to school and university. I know
Yeah.
all about her marriage to Brian. We don't hear anything about those things. But I just thought, psychologically, because of the nature of the events in the book, they needed to be true psychologically. They needed to
Yeah,
make sense. There
yeah,
needed to be all kinds of things in Gwen's past that lead her to make the wrong decisions that she makes in the book. And I think that as a
yes.
reader, you can sort of tell if it's not quite right. You'd be like, well, why did she do that? You need to
Yeah.
know why someone is doing, the very radical things that Gwen does. And,
Yeah.
you can cry out, don't do that, don't say that, please don't do that.
Yes.
But it has to make sense why she's done it.
And it does. The motivations are clear. And I think that's what I like because in some ways she's a bit of an unreliable narrator, but then I would also call her a very reliable narrator because I'm like, oh, I totally get where you're coming from. And who hasn't stuck their foot in their mouth and at a moment where you're like, oh, why did I say that?
That's so true. And I would say that she's not quite an unreliable narrator. She's being honest.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
the unreliability, I suppose, comes from her own interpretation of events and her,
Makes
sort of,
sense.
how well does she know herself? So she's not lying to us at all.
No.
She might occasionally be withholding a detail or two that would have been useful in retrospect. This is an honest account. And, as for those who don't
Yeah.
know, this is a book within a book. So this is Gwen's actually writing this down.
Yes.
And it's, she tells us why she's doing it. She's not doing it to share with other people. She's doing it to make sense of the events of the last 6 months, which have been life altering for so many people. So, she has no reason to conceal and lie.
Yeah.
She's actually confessing and, to her part in events, and she's bearing her soul.
Yeah. Yeah, she really is. So, and then we get Pixie, and Pixie is so fascinating to me because first of all, the name Pixie just it just fits. Like you said, a
Yeah.
free spirit, and she comes along and I mean this is really what propels the story is she moves in, she starts renting, and Gwen is concerned about her. So
She
love to hear
is, yes.
more.
I mean, yeah, Pixie's renting a room from Alec, who is Gwen's neighbor right across the hall. And Gwen and Alec have a sort of uneasy relationship, but they get on pretty well, and they're both on the committee, the residents' committee of this beautiful building. So they meet regularly for these meetings to talk about all kinds of boring stuff, including the no pets rule that they have in the building.
Yes.
But yeah, no sooner has Pixie moved in with Alec than Gwen's picking up some signals that things aren't quite right. And she's very maternal towards Pixie, and they have this friendship that they're it's genuine. They're very simpatico,
Yes.
and she's very welcoming to Pixie. But then she oversteps. Then she sort of, she interferes, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's when things start to go horribly wrong. But Pixie is she's I think, a very complicated person because she's both quite vulnerable in that she doesn't have parents to
Yeah.
guide her or family. She feels quite alone. She comes into the story as a victim of a scam. She's been scammed into giving money for a
Yeah.
flat that didn't exist, basically. So she arrives penniless, and so she's sort of vulnerable to a character like Alec right from the off.
Mhm.
And so Gwen feels very protective towards her. But equally, Pixie is, she has this steel within her, and Gwen almost sort of projects onto her an inability to cope that Pixie doesn't
Yeah.
actually possess. I think Pixie sort of, she realizes this isn't her finest hour. She is a victim in the situation she's in, but she sees it as a bump in the road, whereas Gwen sees it, what unfolds, as crime. And
Yeah.
because Gwen has the luxury in a way to do that, whereas Pixie's very much a pragmatist. And as without giving away spoilers, Pixie
Yeah.
emerges from the story quite a strong woman, and I think that strength
Yes.
has always been there. But we encountered her at a moment of crisis.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's hard not to give spoilers when I was like, what can I ask that won't give everything away? So because we need to you need to read it. I was gonna say hear it because you do hear it when you're reading it through Gwen's eyes and like you said, her role in it. And I loved well, not a huge part of the story, a little dog comes along that creates an interesting pivot point. So since it's sit, stay, read, how about we give a little spoiler there with that one?
Oh yes, absolutely. That's quite fun. And in a way, that's there just to show you what a caring person
Yeah.
Pixie is and what a chaotic person Pixie is and what a rule breaker Pixie is. Because this is
Yeah.
a swanky apartment block where dogs are not allowed. It's actually based on a building in Richmond in West London
Okay.
that, I've long admired. And I was walking my dog Bertie near there and got talking. You know how you get talking to people who, if their dog's the same breed. So we got talking
Yes.
to another Fox Red Labrador owner. And she, lo and behold, lived in this amazing building and she invited me in to have a look around. So
Oh,
it was so
cool.
inspiring and wonderful. But she was the one who told me about, how some of these buildings, the apartments might cost, 1.5, 2 million
My
pounds
gosh. Wow.
or more. And yet you're not allowed to take your dog into these vast communal gardens that,
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
it must be torment for the dogs in the building. The dogs are
Yeah.
allowed in the flats, but the dogs aren't allowed in the gardens. And so I brought this rule across to Columbia Mansions. And in fact, in Columbia Mansions, they're not allowed dogs at all. They're not allowed dogs in the flats. But Pixie sort of smuggles in her friend's little dog without much thought. And then, Alec discovers that she's hiding this dog, and they have this big row. And Gwen hears them, and comes storming out to find out what the fuss is about. And then before she knows it, she's got Pixie and the dog moving in with her overnight. And yeah, it's a kind of it's a scene that does quite a lot of hard work, I would say, in terms of characters, but it's also a comic moment. I think
It
the dog's
is.
called Draco. The dog's called Draco after the
Oh,
character
that's
in
right.
Harry Potter.
That's right.
I have
Which I
so many
love.
dog characters. I mean, actually, this is probably the least doggy book of mine because normally there are dogs in my books, and they live with the family, and in our house there was a dog show where a very very unsettling scene took place
Okay.
um, and yeah, in my last book, Our Holiday, which isn't available in the US as far as I'm aware, not yet, there is a dog based on Bertie called Mango. And I have a whole
Oh,
tradition of naming dogs after characters in Bertie Wooster, in PG Woodhouse, Bertie
oh,
Wooster
cool.
stories. And indeed, Bertie is named after Bertie Wooster.
Okay. Oh, fun. Tell us more about Bertie. While we're talking about Bertie, tell us more about him. Because a red fox terrier, or not terrier, sorry, Labrador. I should know better. We
Labrador.
were talking about our labs before the show.
We
But
were.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what a cool dog.
Well,
Tell
he's
us more about
gorgeous.
him.
I'm completely in love with him. I think I'm possibly a classic empty nester in that
Okay.
all of my love is lavished onto, a pet that, in busier times might not have got as much attention. He's lovely. He's 7 years old and I would say he's quite neurotic in his character. He's very vigilant,
Yeah.
and highly strung. But so affectionate.
Yeah.
Just really adores us and wants to be with us. He's the dog that follows you to the loo.
Okay.
He can't be on his own. So in that respect, he's very much like a toddler. But yeah, he's fantastic. He's the apple of my eye.
Aw, that's awesome. Did you get him as a puppy or how did he come into your life?
We did, yes. We got him in as a puppy, and I think he was about 12 weeks old actually by the time
Okay.
he came to live with us. But it was only a few months before the COVID lockdowns.
Oh,
So I
wow.
do wonder if that has contributed to his sort of neurotic character, because probably for the first 18 months, you weren't allowed to have guests in your house. He had such
Yeah.
a strange early life. And he did socialize with other puppies in the park, but it was back in the over here you weren't supposed to sort
Yeah.
of stand near to other people and stuff, so it wasn't quite normal. So yeah, so he's 7 years old. We've had him since 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd like him to live forever, as we all would.
Yeah. Yeah, they're never with us long enough.
No.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I try not to think about it because my previous dog, who was called Maggie, she died quite young.
Oh.
I think she was 9. And
Oh.
it remains the most shocking and awful, sort of event in my life, I think. Even when my mum died, I don't think I felt the same outpouring of grief. There's something
Mhm.
about, a pet dying that
Yeah.
is so intense because they're with us all the time. Sort of
Yes.
Bertie sleeps in the bed with me,
Yeah.
so we're always together.
Yeah.
And so it's such a painful loss when they do have to go.
It is. It definitely is. It's so hard. And I'm sorry you lost her so young. But I'm
Mm.
glad you have Bertie now,
Yes.
and I'm sure he's kind of a co-author, I bet.
Absolutely, yeah.
Does he?
He's a muse. Yeah, he's an unwitting muse, I would say. He's often, particularly in winter, because I don't have an office. I write on the sofa in
Oh,
our living
cool.
room at home. Yeah, so if he's cold in winter, he'll come and snuggle up with me while I'm
Aw.
writing, and it's really nice. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
I love
but
it.
yeah, we have a townhouse in South London. And so my husband is downstairs in the basement in the kitchen with Bertie for most of the day. That's their den, the boys' den, and then I'm on the
The
sort of
boys
raised
then.
ground floor on the sofa writing. But he kind of trundles between us both. But
I
yeah,
love
they're
that.
they're just wonderful companions for any home workers. But I think, writers, you live in your head, don't you? And
Yeah.
it's so solitary. And so it's really quite nice to have a companion who isn't speaking and interrupting your thoughts,
Yes.
but
Yes.
is there and is, interested.
Definitely. I totally agree. Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. Sometimes my husband says, "Are you talking to me or are you talking to Boomer?"
Yeah.
And most of the time I'm like, "I'm talking to Boomer." So
Yeah, can't he tell from the tone? My husband can tell from the tone because it's a much, much more loving tone if it's with the dog.
yes. I need to remind my husband of that. He should be
Yeah.
able to tell from the tone. You are absolutely right.
And also the baby voices. I mean, you're doing
Yeah.
baby voices with pets. I don't do baby voices with my husband.
I don't
We're long
either.
past that stage in the relationship.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Yeah, my husband has the same issue. So I guess our husbands could get together and commiserate.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, I've got so many female friends where, our dogs are the center of our world. It's so
Yeah.
interesting. But even with younger people now, and this is perhaps another plot line or character in the future, but but dogs particularly, but pets are now, surrogate children for so many young couples. And I was reading that dogs are the new babies and
Oh,
plants are the new
interesting.
dogs.
Plants are the new. I love
Plant
that.
parenting. So there's this plant parenting. So I don't know what will come next. When plants become the new babies, what will become the
But
new
well,
plants? I don't know.
that's a good question. That could be a future book, maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, definitely. Foodstuffs like fruit, maybe, is
Yeah,
going to
there you
start
go.
being petted and parented. We shall see in this crazy world of ours.
We shall. We shall. And the kind of thing about the crazy world and the neighbor's guide to murder, again, I was like, I can't give away too many spoilers, but I really understood the motive for this murder and was even kind of like rooting it on. Did you feel that way? I'm like, should I admit this on a
Yeah, I mean,
podcast? But
absolutely. And again, it's you might not sort of see it on the page, but it's been so thoroughly thought through by me. What are the
Yeah.
various factors? For someone living in a block like Columbia Mansions, or any sort of regular citizen who's never been in trouble with the police before, or at least never been convicted of anything. What on earth could cause that moment when you actually take another life? It's
Yeah.
huge. It's a heinous crime. And
Yeah.
there are going to be lots of factors. It's going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, I think. And so,
Yeah.
plus that, there's in these situations with violent crime, there's almost always alcohol or drugs involved. I mean, that's a given. You have to have that element, I
Yeah.
think,
True.
for it to be even vaguely plausible. But there needs to be psychological seething having gone on for some time to make it credible. And I think I think I did make it credible. And for that reason, a lot of readers have said that they're very sad about the ending, because the murderer, doesn't get away with the crime. Sometimes in my books, in fact, probably more often than not, the criminal, I do let them get away with it.
Oh,
But I think,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, but I very rarely will have a sort of almost premeditated murder, and I just feel that
Mhm.
like that's unforgivable, however much you like the character.
Yeah.
And so in this particular book, there is a form of justice. I mean, there's not always
Hmm.
formal justice, and police investigations or anything in my book, and again, there isn't really in this one, although the police are involved in
They
in
are.
various
Yep.
plot lines. Um, but there is a form of justice, and a lot of readers have found it very sad and wanted to know whether I considered alternatives, which I did. I did,
Did
funnily
you?
enough. But
Okay.
I
Okay.
went for this. With my endings, I normally wait to see what feels right, and it felt right.
It did. It did. I agree with that. So, I mean, in a perfect world, you would love it to go some other way, but it wouldn't have felt right. So,
No, no. And
yeah.
also,
Yeah.
I know that the book in the US is packaged, as if it is this sort of dark comedy. But actually, I write psychological thrillers. If you see the covers in other markets, they're dark, they're
Yeah.
crime books. And so, this isn't one of those books where, you dispatch annoying men at the drop of a
Right.
hat.
Right.
This is a psychological thriller with some underlying comedy in the tone of the narrator, and I think
Yeah.
they're two different beasts. So I'm not
That
going to
makes
be
sense.
I'm not going to be flippant about death and murder. This isn't one of those cozy crime books or comedies.
Yeah, definitely not. And I think that's why I was like, should I say I totally understood this
Yeah,
or
yeah.
doing
Oh,
this?
I
Because
definitely, yeah, absolutely.
it's like, oh my gosh. Um, well, what is up next for you? And what are you and Bertie writing next?
Well, Bertie and I have just finished my next book actually, which is
Oh,
out
good.
here in the UK in November and will be out in the
Oh,
US, I think
awesome.
at some point next year.
Okay.
We haven't announced that deal yet, but it will be with the same publisher, which is wonderful, Grand Central.
Fantastic.
And it's called A Knock at the Door. And again, the title may change for different markets, but in the UK, it's called A Knock at the Door. And it's a very different sort of book, actually. It's about, I'm calling it imposter noir, and it's
Okay.
about a child who goes missing at the age of 3. And 18 years later, a student arrives at the parents' house and claims
Oh,
to be that missing child.
oh,
So over
wow.
the years, there's obviously been a thorough search after the child went missing in a criminal investigation,
Yeah.
but nobody was ever found and no real leads. So it's always been this horrible abyss of a mystery for the parents. And then this girl arrives and claims to be their daughter, and she's called Tippy. She has a different name now, and she has a whole alternative history of how she's grown up. And the parents straight away believe, sort of viscerally and in their gut that this
Yeah.
girl is their daughter. And so DNA tests are arranged. But our narrator, again, it's all about the lens, and our
Yeah.
narrator is the mother's sister. And
Okay.
she happens to be there at her sister's house when this girl arrives making this extraordinary claim. And straight away, her gut response is that it's not Pippi. This is an imposter.
Okay.
And so right from the start, you've got this tension between the sisters and how they're receiving this stranger. So a lot of the action takes place while we're waiting for DNA tests, and then when the results do come, the mystery only deepens.
Okay.
It's very different. It's got a very different tone, and there is a little bit of humor, perhaps not quite as much as Gwen has in her voice. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited
Cool.
about it. And it's had, very few people have read it so far because it hasn't been published yet, but the response has been good. So I'm looking forward to touring
Fantastic.
that in a couple of months. I'll be touring that book here.
Oh, wow.
Also, I'm actually not writing anything else this year because I'm having a year of TV because two of my books have been
Yeah.
adapted for the screen. And
Exciting.
that's been quite a lot of work for me. And I've been working on an original drama as well. So this has been very
Oh,
much my
wow.
kind of my TV year. And
Cool.
hopefully both of those adaptations. One is The Only Suspect, which has a dog in the book, but the dog didn't make it to the screen for
Oh, bummer.
various
Okay,
reasons
that's all
that we
right.
can discuss. And The Heights, which didn't have a dog, I don't think, in the first place, and no dog has made it. So they should both be on screen in the US. So, I hope, touch wood, and that would likely be
Oh,
early
good.
next year.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
yes, yeah. So it's been a very TV orientated year for me. And then I think, towards the end of this year and going into 2027, I'll start writing my next book in earnest, which will be my 20th book. So,
Wow.
as a landmark one.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's so cool.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I was looking at your website, which I'll put in the show notes for readers, because I saw the television and I was like, oh, these look really good. So I was hoping that it would air in the US as well. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to hear that.
that they will in some way, shape, or form. I'd had a previous adaptation which is still available, I think, to watch in the US on things
Okay.
like Amazon Prime and
Oh, okay.
I think it's still on PBS. I'm not sure. That's where it first aired, and that's called Our House. Which
Okay.
was about a woman who, in the first scene, a woman arrives home from a weekend away and finds strangers moving into her house.
Oh,
And they claim to have bought the house and have all of the legal documents to prove it. And so she has to she has the trauma of this, that, all of her possessions have gone. Her children aren't there either.
oh my
And so
gosh.
she has to uncover what on earth has been going on and try and catch up with her estranged husband, who may or may not have
Okay.
something to do with it. So yes, that was a big hit here. Actually, that show, it starred Martin
Nice.
Compston, who's a big name here, and Tuppence Middleton, and
Cool.
it's great fun. It's great fun to see your work on the screen. It's just,
I can't
it's the
imagine.
icing on the cake.
Do you help write the screenplays and for the books? Do you help adapt them to
No,
screen or
No, I haven't done the screenwriting to date,
okay.
but I'm either a consultant or an executive producer, so I'm
Oh,
there,
cool. Okay.
for the screenwriter to pick my brains whenever he or she needs to.
Okay.
And yeah, and then I'll see early scripts and give notes. And then I'll
Okay.
see, the rushes as they come in when they're filming. Yeah, so I'm quite involved, but it's quite nice to not be the writer, because
Yeah,
I think that's quite a stressful job, because
I
unlike
can't imagine.
books, there's notes coming in from all over the place. You're talking about millions and millions of dollars. You can't make mistakes. And so there's a lot of stakeholders. Whereas I think when you write a book, it's you and your editor and your agent. And, normally, any feedback, sort of comes through one person at very formal stages. And
Yeah.
after a point, it's really up to you to say yes or no to other people's ideas. TVs are, way more collaborative, with a lot more people having ownership over the script. So I'm not sure how enjoyable it would be to adapt one of my own books. I think I prefer the role of, being there, to help and to enjoy it without feeling the stress of it.
I love that. Yep, that sounds like the perfect blend of being involved. Sounds good to me. Well, oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day. This has been so much fun. But we'll start wrapping up. Where can readers find you? Are you on social media, author newsletter? I'll put your website in the show notes for sure. So,
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm on my website. You can sign up for my newsletter, which comes through my UK publisher, but I believe can be sent anywhere in the world. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
nice.
They're the best two. I'll occasionally dip into X,
Mhm.
but less so these days. It's mainly Instagram. That's where
Okay.
there'll be the regular feed of news, occasional pictures
Awesome.
of Bertie too.
Good. I was gonna ask because now I have to go check out Bertie when
Yeah.
we get done
Oh,
here.
and I'm going to
So,
put, yeah, it's a while since I put up a picture of him. So you might need to
yeah.
scroll back a little bit, but that's prompted me to find a nice pic and put it up there.
That sounds good. Well, I look forward to it and I will find one for him. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for your support. It's been lovely to chat.
Oh, I've had so much fun. And everyone, it's A Neighbor's Guide to Murder. It's fun, fascinating, but like you said, still psychological thriller. Great, great read. I love it. And until next time, keep your tails wagging and pages turning. Thanks for joining me today. Sit, Stay, Read is a part of the Authors on the Air Global Network. If you enjoyed today's author interview, be sure to leave a review and share the episode with a fellow animal-loving reader. If you're curious about the world of working dogs and wilderness adventures, please check out my books at KathleenDonnelly.com. Until next time, curl up with your best furry friend and sit, stay, read.